I was given the luxury of learning how to think and how to create. I had a responsibility to the world, and it made a shift in me. And it was a parable, really, where, Jesus talks about giving 5 talents and 2 talents and 1 talent. And there was one guy who took the 1 talent and buried it and did nothing with it. And that was me, because I was afraid to use that talent in a way that I would draw critique or criticism or judgment from other people. I realized I'm the only person between me and God that hasn't given myself permission to live my life fully. Every time we make a commitment to do something more powerful in the world, I become more generative. And so I've realized that I have this God-given capacity to create. I was a monastic. I gave myself permission to have nothing. When Kim met me, everything I owned, I could put into a grocery bag, a paper bag, other than my guitar. And my family was pursuing wealth and success and driving really nice cars and taking a month in the Swiss Alps. And I was a reaction to my family. And so I saw wealth as evil, possessions as evil. And then I became a follower of Jesus. And at first I was creating Jesus in my own image, And so I thought, me and Jesus, we're poor. Me and Jesus have a vow to poverty. Me and Jesus hate materialism. Me and Jesus, are against wealth and power and institutions. And I would call myself an anarchist. And then I went to work with the urban poor because of that value. And in those 10 years or so working with urban poor, it radically altered my whole view of my personal responsibility and of the economics of human life. And when I married Kim, I didn't even buy a bed because I told her a bed was a luxury. We slept on the floor, and she's so awesome. She slept on the floor and never complained. And you have to understand, I was the opposite.
I don't understand. I'm so single. I have a bed.
And then when I went to this pastor that knew me in college, I introduced him to Kim. And I said, do you think, this is the right person for me to marry? He said something really interesting to me. He said, she's exactly the right person for you to marry because she was an orphan and she grew up in poverty. And you have an unhealthy relationship to wealth. And you will grow to love her so much that you'll want to provide her a home because she never had one. You'll want to provide her the things that she never had the privilege or opportunity to have. And I don't know if anyone's ever spoken more truth in my life, because I don't think I would have ever made the choices that created a home or created a family or reconstructed my life to be a husband and dad. And if I hadn't have made a shift to love someone more than I loved my ideals. And we were very poor for a decade. I don't think for a decade I made more than $16,000 a year. So I'm talking extreme poverty. Even though we never acted poor, we never felt poor. We felt rich and alive and happy. We were as happy then as any time in our life. And I came home one day, and I'm a deeply spiritual person, even mystical. And I felt like I had this moment of epiphany where I went home and I said, I think God has given me permission to create wealth. And my wife had been married to me for 10 years. She goes, you can create wealth? I said, yeah, I always knew how. And I just was against it. And she goes, well, it'd be great if you could create enough to pay the bills. and so I had to make an adjustment inside of my own inner world. And I was actually self-destructive. I would be offered situations where I would have been making $7 million or 7 figures in my early 30s, even late 20s. I would always pivot to whatever was more self-destructive. What I thought poverty was my nobility. Poverty was proof that I was sincere. Poverty was my proof I loved God. Poverty was proof I was a good human. And then I had this internal shift, and it took me a little while, where I went, I'm irresponsible. However you define it, I had a grandfather who taught me how to play chess when I was 3 years old. I was given the luxury of learning how to think and how to create. And I had a responsibility to the world, and it made a shift in me. And it was a parable, really, where Jesus talks about giving 5 talents and 2 talents and 1 talent. And there was one guy who took the 1 talent and buried it and did nothing with it. And that was me, because I was afraid to use that talent in a way that it would, I would draw critique or criticism or judgment from other people. And I looked at it and go, Jesus actually commended the guy who took the 5 talents, gave him complete freedom for how to develop it, and then celebrated when he grew it to 10. And I realized I'm the only person between me and God that hasn't given myself permission to live my life fully. And I've actually always been on that journey. And I think there's some sense where I have to have a need so big that it gives me permission to create. We were making about $25,000 a year combined, me and Kim. And we made a commitment to give $30,000 to Mosaic on a project they were doing. That was more of my annual salary. And I said 25,000, but she said 30 because she's competitive. And so she said 30,000. And then I get a call from a publisher who heard me do a talk at a conference and said, can you take that 30-minute talk and turn it into a book? And I said, well, send me an offer. They sent me a contract for $25,000. I hadn't not even written a book. I said, well, I'll try. I said, we'll send you in advance. I said, no, don't send me in advance. I don't even know if I can write this book. And I'm on a typewriter. I can't even type. I'm writing, a word every 2 hours, and it's over Christmas. But I have the book in my mind. I've written it in my head. And then suddenly this woman comes in my life named Holly Rapp, who became Holly Quillen, and said, I'm a stenographer. I work for Sidney Sheldon. He talks all of his books in. I've heard a rumor you're writing a book. Maybe you're like Sidney. Maybe you could talk the whole book in. I said, really? And she goes, yeah, I type 149 words a minute or something like that. She goes, just come up to Sidney's, in Palm Springs, come up there. And when I get off work, I'll do it for free. And she goes, all I'm asking of you is, could you pray that I could have a husband? She ended up marrying my assistant. And so I go up there and I write my first book in 24 hours. And that book actually wins an award. And we get a $25,000 gift or advance or royalty that we turned immediately over to the church. I would have never become a writer if I had not made a commitment to give $30,000. Every time we make a commitment to do something more powerful in the world, I become more generative. And so I've realized that I have this God-given capacity to create. But my motivation is never success or wealth. Aaron knows me. It isn't what moves me. And what moves me is how, what kind of impact can you make in human history? Like what kind of fingerprint can you leave on with the good you're doing in the world? How many people can you actually invest into where their lives are forever transformed? It's like, that for me is exciting, and I love that we have a house and I love that we have a car, but I also love the fact that we've helped quite a few other people buy houses and we've bought cars for other people. And frankly, for me, I wake up in the morning going, oh, what could we do? And I know Aaron has goals that he doesn't ever express to anyone. And because he started telling me, he goes, Dad, there was no one there for you when you were a young pastor. He goes, I want to be the guy there for those guys. I want to be the guy that helps them get into homes. I want to be the guy that helps them have a better life. And I think that's what kind of motivates us as a family. Mm. And so, yeah, I've decided to go public in my private life and to see how much capacity I actually have. Can I create millions? Can I create hundreds of millions? Can I create billions? I'm 65. I'm just starting. And, and we're going to see how much we can create. And we're going to see how much good we can do. And it's the most exciting endeavor of my life.